Hey guys, I don't think I have to explain to you that I love 10mm, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Our friends over at Big Daddy Unlimited sent out this model 610 Smith & Wesson, which is a reintroduction of a classic 10mm Smith & Wesson revolver. I love 10mm, I like them in autos, like them in carbines, and I even like it in revolvers. And some of you guys are going to ask, well, why? Why would you just get a 357 Magnum? Because, you know, if you compare the ballistics, you're doing about 357 Magnum energy out of the 10mm revolver. Well, I love 10mm, so I like to have ammunition compatibility with my carbine, with my automatics, and with my revolvers, plus it's a little bit different. Now, I've done videos here before on the channel about 10mm revolvers from Ruger, and that's why I wanted to check this handgun out from Smith & Wesson to see how it stacked up against my Ruger GP100 and the Champion that you've seen here on the channel before. Now, Big Daddy Unlimited did send us this gun to do the comparison with. They don't care what we say. Go back to my CZ 527 American video. Big Daddy Unlimited sent that firearm out to us. We talked about some of the problems with the gun. At the end of the day, I said I probably wouldn't buy it. So they don't care what we say when they send us guns to use in video. So I just want to make you guys aware of that. Now, let's just start off by shooting at some steel plates. If you take a look out there, things look brand new, and that's because our friends over at Challenge Targets brought out brand new steel every year. They come and take our old stuff and bring out new stuff for us to use for the year. And we got a whole bunch of different spinners this year and an updated plate rack. If you follow us on Instagram, you'll know that a massive tree, more than one actually, 2 trees, fell and crushed the plate rack into the dirt. So we got a brand new plate rack and then all these fun spinners to play around with. All right, so let's load this thing up. It's just a typical Smith & Wesson. Now, unfortunately, it has what some folks call the Hillary hole. It has a manual lock, which is unsightly, and I hate it right there. So you have a little key where you can presumably lock the gun versus putting some sort of other external lock on the firearm, making it safe. It's a double action revolver. It doesn't need that. Also, this about Smith & Wessons drives me nuts. I like old Smiths because they have the firing pin on the hammer. They still have a transfer safety bar in there that prevents them from firing if you have all chambers loaded. So it's not like the firing pin could accidentally come into contact with the primer anyway. It just looks wrong. It's like a single action Army with no firing pin on the hammer. It just looks wrong. But Smith & Wessons in general feel really good. So yeah, once I got done complaining there about the current crop of Smith & Wesson revolvers, let's actually shoot this thing. I'm using a moon clip. It's a full moon clip because it's one piece. And I'm going to drop that into the revolver here. Close it. And that allows us to eject all 6 rounds once they're fired because it's a rimless cartridge. All right, and I want to thank the guys from Federal who sent out the 10mm ammunition for us to use here on the channel. It's one of our highest recurring costs. They keep us well supplied in ammunition, and we want to thank them again for doing that. All right, shooting a spinning tree with a revolver isn't something I'm going to be really very good at because I'm an automatic guy, but let's see what happens here. Okay, there it goes. This one's different. This is the propeller. It's a little bit slow moving. All right, I'll get you. All right, I think that's it. Oh, actually, I had one more shot. That's me being a dummy there. Smith & Wessons. Cylinders turn this way. All right, one more round. See if I can knock off that guy. Wow, I don't think I missed one. The recoil is nice and smooth, but these aren't the hottest 10mm loads. But as you can see, they pop right out with the moon clips. I'm gonna chuck another moon clip in there and knock off those last 2 targets. Here you can see the moon clip again. Drop it in there. So it looks like this thing's shooting right to point of aim out of the box. But I'm shooting single action. I don't think my double action skills would be quite that good. Got that one on the move. All right, so there you have it. We cleaned off that plate rack and I didn't miss a single target. That's pretty cool. Now we have, what, 4 left? Let's try this Baby Star with the 4 that we have left. I can't mess with this thing. I actually kind of like it. All right, let's load up some more moon clips. Let's also shoot it without moon clips, show you how that works. But if you've seen my other 10mm revolver videos, you'll already know that. But let's continue knocking off these steel plates and see if my luck holds out. Some of you guys watching may not be familiar with how a moon clip loads and unloads. So just to unload it, just grab it and pull the cases off. It's very simple to do. And then grab a fresh round and just push it in and reload the moon clip. This is really handy for those of you that are reloaders and you want to keep your brass, or if you're going to use it as a carry gun and you want to do quick reloads, the moon clips make that possible. I have a confession to make. I screwed up, which I always do. The first target that we were shooting at is actually called the Revolver. The one just to the right of it with the 6 stars that have yet to be shot at, that is the propeller. Then we have a dual Texas tree to the right of that. And then the little guy to the right that we already shot at, all except for that one plate hanging there at the bottom, is the mini Texas star. So now that I've got the nomenclature of the targets correct, let's load this thing back up. Now what I'm going to show you guys is something that you can do with these revolvers, is load them without moon clips, and they still work. I didn't bring any 40 Smith & Wesson out because I don't keep it on hand. But we did a video, at least with the Ruger revolvers, and my Ruger revolvers were firing the 40 Smith & Wesson just fine out of the 10mm revolvers. If it'll work in the Smith, I don't know. I don't keep that ammo on hand because I don't have that many 40 Smith & Wessons. All right, so let's go ahead and see what this propeller has for us. See if I can keep up the winning streak. Doo-doo-doo. Oh man, they turn all over the frickin' place. Holy cow. All right, I didn't miss any, but that thing is crazy because they go up and they wiggle back down, and that definitely has a lot more motion to it than the just the standard Texas stars. All right, so I did fire all 6 rounds. Sometimes the cases will drop right out. The ejector doesn't really do anything because it's a rimless case. So now you kind of use a thumbnail and just pluck out those spent cases to reload. Go back to a moon clip here and take out this Texas star. All right, here we go. Come on. All right, got the front one knocked out. And that's it. Yep, that's it. So knock out the moon clip there, grab a fresh one. I am not the fastest revolver reloader. I'm not even going to pretend to be. That's Jerry Mitchlick, and he has a YouTube channel. Oh, missed one finally. What? Wow, I missed 2 on the backside. Took me all 6 rounds. So the winning streak only lasted for a short time. I was surprised it lasted as long as it did. We've cleaned off all those plates except for one. Can't leave that little guy out there. Load 1 round. All right. Now we have to reset the targets. With targets like this mini Texas star, Challenge Target has set it up so you can configure it a number of different ways. Right now we have it set up with, full AR-500 rifle ready steel targets that are 6 inches round. You can get 8-inch round targets as well. Plus you can do 22 plates, which are very thin. You definitely don't want to hit those with anything more than a 22. And the star itself is actually adjustable. So it depends on what your particular needs are. If you center punch a plate like this and have this spring set on its highest tension, it'll knock it off. If you hit it just on the side, it probably wouldn't if I had the spring set at the highest tension. Right now these are configured so that they are at the lowest tension. There's 2 holes here. And if you put this pin through this hole here, it moves the spring closer to the tensioner and to the plate and applies more pressure on it. You can see how the plate fits into the rack. It's cut a specific way so it fits in, and then this little spring right there is what's holding it all in place. Now it's set on the lightest spring setting. Again, the tighter tension would be to move this pin further down. So some guys that are competition shooters want them set up this way, so even if they nick the target versus hitting it solidly, it'll still fall off. But setting it back up is pretty easy to do, even with a bum finger like mine. I'm gonna stick the bum finger in there and see if I can't hurt it some more. Yeah, gonna have to use that bum finger. But that makes resetting the target pretty stinking easy. All right, there we go, target reset. Back in the day, target grips would have been pretty thick wood grips. Today, Smith & Wesson has its own branded rubberized grips, which actually gives a fairly good feel to the gun. The single action trigger pull is typical Smith & Wesson revolver single action trigger pull. If you try it, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can pretty much pick up any Smith & Wesson revolver, cock it, and dry fire it safely, of course, and you'll get an idea of what the trigger pull's like. It's always really, really good on single action. Double action is going to be a lot more than I'm used to with my double action 9s. Mostly because I have action work done to them. So if you take the CZ P01 that I'll carry quite often, it has a Cajun Gunworks trigger in it. It has a very short double action pull, only about that much distance, and it's a very light pull. It's about the same poundage as it would take to pull the striker or the trigger on a Glock with a striker to fire that double action pistol. So that's highly modified. This, you're going to pull a lot heavier trigger pull, and you're indexing that cylinder and all sorts of stuff. And right now, basically, I'm making excuses for why I'm about to miss 6 times, because I'm going to fire this one double action. Let's see if I can pull it off. It's really long, and it's not creepy, but okay. There I was making excuses, but it seems like I'm doing okay with the, there I did one more round left. Okay, let's see if I hit the last one. Okay, I can shoot this thing double action. I didn't think I would do that well. It's been a long time since I shot a double action Smith. So it's still smooth. I mean, you can certainly slick them up, but that's a lot smoother than I would have expected. I always fire single action with a revolver. I very rarely try to shoot a double action. Let's try to speed it up a little bit, double action. And let's go for that baby Texas Star. Harder to hit targets. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Just kidding. I should end on that note. Wow, that's a decent double action. I'm surprised. The Ruger Champion 10mm is a handgun I've shown here on the channel before, and I just love the way this handgun looks and feels. It has target wood grips on it, a little bit more vertical, not as much of a back hump to it as the Smith & Wesson 610 has, and it just feels good in my hand. Both the Smith & Wesson and this Ruger have a little over 4-inch long barrel. This one does not have a full lug like the Smith & Wesson does, but this is just a handy little 10mm. I really like it. This one has a fiber optic day glow front sight, windage adjustable, and elevation adjustable rear sight, just like the 610 Smith & Wesson, but just a little bit smaller handgun. And I really, really love this gun. I don't even know if it's still on the market, if it was a special gun made for a distributor. I don't recall, but I was really happy when I got my hands on this little guy. So let's do some shooting with the GP100, which is basically the same thing, just with some upgrades. And there we go. Most of the rounds just fell right out there. Load her back up. more, so I only got one more cylinder full. All right, let's try that double action. I just don't feel that confident with double action revolvers. With good reason. That trigger guard hits that finger and it hurts. If you don't know what happened to my finger, go watch the Barrett 50 cal video or the video I shot with a Iraq veteran talking about how I smashed the end of my finger off. Yeah. Double action revolvers. Can't have a collection without 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here we have 2 examples of moon clips. Right here on my right is a Ruger moon clip. You'll notice a little bit more minimalistic. It's slightly smaller than the Smith & Wesson, which is just to its left there. And you'll notice it has a relief cut, a circular relief cut, which makes it a little bit easier to load and unload the Ruger moon clip. The Smith & Wesson moon clip just has a single relief cut, doesn't have that ball cut down at the bottom, so it's a little bit more tension, so it takes a little more effort to get the round in and the round out. Now, as I mentioned, they're not the same size. The Ruger cylinder is just slightly smaller than the Smith's, and you can kind of see that there. So what we're going to do is load them both up and see if, because I've never tried this before, if they're interchangeable. I suspect they aren't, but see how much easier I can just pop those rounds into the Ruger moon clip. Well, some would argue it holds them too loosely, so that's the downside. You might be able to knock it loose in your pocket, grab the Smith moon clip, and it takes about twice the force to clip it in there. But once you get used to doing it, it's not that difficult. So there they are side by side. Once again, you can see the Ruger's slightly smaller, so I know that when I pick the Smith moon clip up, it definitely isn't working in the Ruger. So they use their own moon clips. You guys watching probably said that's a little bit dramatic. We already knew that, Mac, but I just wanted to show you guys. So I'm going to put the proper moon clip in the Champion, and I'm going to step over here and shoot the Ruger 10mm Champion. There you go. Yeah, I like the way this Ruger shoots. I really, really do. If I had to pick between this and the Smith, I still think I'd stick with the Ruger. I really do. Now, having handled the Ruger and the Smith side by side, the 610 is just an overall much bigger feeling handgun. Has a nice wide shoe on the trigger. I think it absorbs recoil a little bit better with these rubber grips too. It's definitely a nice shooting pistol. It's bigger, it feels more meaty. I do like that wide trigger shoe on it, but yeah, it'd be a tough comparison. If I had to pick one, I think the GP100, especially that Champion, would be my pistol, but this thing certainly shoots very, very nice indeed. This is my Ruger Match Champion. I've featured this gun here on the channel before. It's a 10mm revolver, obviously made by Ruger, and it's just a little bit smaller and, in my opinion, better feeling than the current configuration 610 that I have here. But you can see the cylinder's a little bit bigger on the 610, which is here on the bottom with its rubber grips, and they both have about the same length barrel, right around 4 inches. The double action, single action is pretty comparable. Both guns have adjustable rear sights for both elevation and windage, but the GP100 has this fiber optic front sight, which is really nice. You'll notice the grips are slightly different. The Smith definitely has a bigger grip, so if you have a larger hand, you'll like it. The two handguns are pretty evenly matched in price. If you want to pick up one of these, you're going to be right around the $700 mark. If you're going to pick up a Match Champion, you're going to be over $750 typically, if you can still find them out there. So they're, you know, pretty evenly matched in price. Although I think the Ruger has, the Match Champion anyway, has a little bit nicer features. I really like the wood stocks on this. I like how they feel better than the thick rubber grips on the Smith, and I definitely like that front sight better. But the Smith is certainly a solid revolver. I mean, I've got a bunch of old Smiths in my collection. I have Smith & Wesson military service pistols that, you know, like the Victory, that are still running great. So typically I've had really good luck over the years with Smith & Wesson. With Rugers, I love them because they're just indestructible. I remember when I was a kid, they were doing tests in Guns and Ammo magazine or something, and one guy was skipping a GP100 down an asphalt parking lot, and the grips had broken off, and they taped the grips back on. They were just trying to knock the thing out of timing so it wouldn't fire properly, and they couldn't do it if memory serves me correctly, but this has been over 25, 30 years ago. So ever since then, I've always had, you know, kind of an affinity for Ruger revolvers. They're built like tanks. Just so it's clear to you guys, Challenge Targets does not pay us to talk about their targets in videos, but they do set up our range for us every year, like I mentioned earlier in the video. Well, Jason called up Brad over at Challenge Targets, and it just so happens that they are doing a 30% off sale right now. They don't do that frequently, as it turns out, and they're doing one right now on slightly used targets. You're not going to get one that's all beat to death, and they do have a full factory warranty. So if you want anything answered about Challenge Targets and what configurations are available and what pricing is, don't ask us in the comments section, because I honestly don't know. The best thing to do is just to go by challengetargets.com and check out what they have going on. All right, so I have my last 6 rounds of Federal 10mm loaded into the Smith & Wesson 610 revolver. My overall impressions of the gun, it's a nice revolver. I've always liked Smith & Wesson revolvers. So it shoots nice. It definitely, you know, recoils very mildly. The rubber grips versus the wood grips of the Ruger actually do feel like they absorb some of that recoil, but there's not a whole lot of recoil with the 10mm. If you've ever shot a 357 Magnum, that's pretty much what this feels like. Or 38 Special if you start shooting, you know, like 40 Smith & Wesson, or, you know, kind of pud-loaded 10mm to 40 Smith & Wesson velocities. It's going to be a very similar recoil impulse. Very comfortable gun to shoot. Sights are good right out of the box. The sights seem to be spot on. And yeah, and like I said, the guys over at Big Daddy Unlimited set us up with this. If you're a Patreon supporter, which we do have a link down below, we're 100% viewer supported. Big Daddy doesn't pay us. Challenge Targets doesn't pay us. Smith & Wesson doesn't pay us. We are supported by you, our viewers. There's a link down below. Guys, if you would like to support us in other ways, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. And I'm just looking for reasons not to shoot, because I know I'm going to screw this up. There's no way I'm going to be lucky again. I'll let it move. Maybe it's not going to. Okay, so the gun shoots really, really good. Thanks for 11 years of support, guys. We'll talk to you soon.